Welcome again. In this tutorial, I will be talking about asynchronous programming in JavaScript, and I will be giving you a few examples, and I will show you how you can use the promises in JavaScript to do the asynchronous programming. So before going into the details, first of all, I will just show you how the synchronous programming is different from the asynchronous programming. Okay, and how the promises achieve this thing. So as you can see that while doing programming in JavaScript, you would have seen that all the things are pretty run in the sequential manner. If I write something here and I write this thing here like in console, so if I run this thing, you can see that first of all the start has executed and the end has been executed at the end. Okay, by the way, I'm using node to run the JavaScript in the console. This like my terminal. If you don't know about node, so it's like a JavaScript framework for running JavaScript in your terminal instead of like your browser. So as you can see that we have like console.log, and uh, the start has been initially displayed and end has been displayed afterwards. And if I make a function for something something like this, so you will see that this has this will be displayed, in the middle of this start and end. Okay, but what happens is that, let's suppose if my function, this display message is taking longer than expected. Okay, let's suppose this display message is going to return me the message properly formatted for this name. I will give you examples, something like hello with the name, and I will just wrap this up in console.log and I will display. So what happens is, for example, if my function, this display message is taking longer than expected, so what will be the impact? So for this I will just say set timeout. This is just for demonstration purpose. It's a built-in function of JavaScript, which is like just to mimic the time period where the server will be taking, so I will just say take 3 seconds and then return me this hello, afterwards the name, which will be uh, like pushed in the parameter. So I will see that I have got the start and the end but undefined over here. This is the reason while working in the sequential programming, which is referred to as synchronous programming, because you don't have the control over this function which is returning something after some time period, because you are directly displaying the results from over here without specifying something that you should wait for this thing for 3 seconds, or if this message is taking longer, so just display both of these things. But when this process is completed, so later on display the message value on the screen. Okay, so how we can achieve this thing, like how we can overcome this problem? So in order to overcome this problem, the JavaScript has given us this feature called promises. The promises takes the advantage of multi-threading programming, which will wait for this message to execute properly and return all the message. Okay, like we complete this message, and this start and end will run in their own separate thread. Okay, and it will not wait for this like display message, but this display message will run in its own thread. So when it's execute properly, so this console.log will display the message which we will be returning from here. Okay, so in order to demonstrate this thing, I will just comment this out, and I will first of all write something over here. Like I will write an example of this promise. Okay, I will create a promise, and this promise basically takes two parameters, resolve and reject. These are pretty simple. If something is like successful, so you write this in resolve, and if something happens wrong, so you have to write this in reject. Okay, for example, a user is like having this like let's suppose I'm just saying like there are two values. Okay, if a is equals to like b, okay, so resolve a is equal to b. Okay, else reject a is not equal to b. Right, so if I have to like call this promise, so I will write promise, then, and I know it is going to return me this message over here. So I will say message, and I will say console log message. Okay, but if something is not working, like an error occurs, in our case we are saying if a is not equal to b, so call this reject thing, so uh, it will be called in this case section. Okay, so I will just say display me the error. If I run this thing over here, I can say that a is not equal to b, which is perfectly fine. Let's suppose if a is equal to b, we can see that a is equal to b. Okay, but what if our application is, or this thing is taking some time? So how we can like check this? We will just set a timeout built-in function. Okay, and let's suppose it's taking 3 seconds. So as you can see that I have specified the 3 seconds for this set timeout, and this will take like 3 seconds, and afterwards it will display a is equal to b. And at this stage, if I write something before this promise, okay, like start and end, so here you will see that start and end will run in its own thread. Okay, and after 3 seconds this a is equal to b will be displayed. Let me clear this again. As you can see, this is like asynchronous programming. Okay, so how we can like push this thing in the function? It's really simple. All you have to do is cut this, and I will just write like function check two numbers. and I will just paste this here, and I will say return me this new promise. Okay, and these two numbers will be coming from the input. So here I can say that in this check two numbers, I will pass two numbers and see what happens. As you can see, A is equal to B. But if I say like 3 over here, you can see that A is not equal to B. This was one example. Now how you can like chain multiple promises inside each other. Let me give you an example. For example, we have a function which is like get the user details, okay, by providing you the ID to some API or database. So I will say get user details, and return me this new promise. For example, this database is like taking 2 seconds on the server, okay, and after that it is going to return me the user detail, which is the username, user email, okay, and I will just write this resolve. Okay, so this get user details will return me the user details providing the ID. It's just like mimic something on the server. Okay, here you can like call any API of your choice, it doesn't matter. So if the user details are successful, it will be in this resolve thing. If something bad happens, you can cache them in this reject thing, right? Afterwards, if I get the user details, then I want that let's suppose I want something from the server to get me all the repositories or all the all the documents of that username. Okay, so here I will just say get all the documents, and it is going to pass a parameter by username. Just for simplicity, I will write resolve over here, because right now we don't have any error. And these documents are taking like 4 seconds. For example, they are some huge documents. Okay, and afterwards each document is called separately, like I just want that get me the content of this document. So like I make another function just out of nowhere, and I will just copy this thing, because it's just like to make you guys understand like what I mean by this. And we'll just like say random stuff. Okay, and here I will just pass the detail. So first I want the user details, then for that specific user I want all the documents, and then I want all the detail of that document. Okay, so let's suppose this is like taking 2.5 seconds. So how I'm gonna like chain these promises. So the first thing, if you can see that the user details is taking the ID parameter. Okay, so let's suppose for user for the ID 1, I am getting the user detail. Okay, so I have got this user detail. Okay, in this user detail, as you can see, I have got this username. So I will just get this from here, right? Then I have to pass this username in to get all documents. Okay, so I will pass this username, then it is going to return me the documents. So we'll say documents, and I will just like store documents. In fact, it's just an array, so let's just say constant first doc equals to docs. It's just like the first document, and after that the content of documents. So I will just first doc, then, and it's going to return me the content. So as you can see over here, I have got the user details. From user details, I've got the username. I have passed this username into get all documents function, and it is going to return me all the documents, and I will get the first document from here, and after that I will just get all the contents, right? I just save this and run this and see what happens. As you can see, I have got the content from here. This took some time because 2 seconds were took by this get user details, 4 seconds were by this function, and 2.5 seconds were for this function. But in the middle of this, the start at the end, if I write something like here, so you will see that your start and end will be running separately in its own thread, and once this thing is completed, so it will be displayed in its own thread, and then your program will execute the exit statement and will come out from the complete execution flow. But as you can see over here that sometimes chaining this function is like quite a lot of mess. You have to keep track of all of these chaining with like functions. So in order to make it a little bit neat and clean, you can have this option which is called like using something called like async function. Okay, so it's neat and clean because here you get like username and how you like get this username. You get this by calling this function like get user details and pass on an ID. Okay, it's going to return you the user, and once the user is returned, right, so you can just like get the username from this user. Okay, after that you are going to get all documents. So and then so if I run this thing, okay, if I run this node.js, okay, start and end, and it will display me this content. Content was not displayed because I didn't write it here. So as you can see that I have got the content. So it's up to you. You can use like this coding style for using promises, or you can use like this. It's totally fine. But while you are using this convention, so you have to use this async attribute at the start of the function, and each function has to be called by prior to be like for this like await parameter. Okay, so hopefully this has like cleared your concept about these promises in JavaScript. If you have any question, please leave it in the comment section and I will answer you there. Thank you.